He was a chameleon, blending into the background of ordinary life. A man of many names, none of them his own. Terry Rasmussen, the name that would eventually strike fear into the hearts of many, was a master of disguise, both literally and figuratively. He was a phantom, drifting from state to state, leaving a trail of tragedy in his wake. He was a predator, hiding in plain sight. Rasmussen's true identity remained a mystery for years, concealed beneath a carefully constructed facade. He was a ghost, a whisper of a man who could vanish into thin air, only to reappear under a new name, in a new town, with a new life. His victims, unsuspecting and innocent, would become forever entangled in his web of deceit. He was a chameleon indeed, adapting to his surroundings, changing his colors to suit his needs. But beneath the surface, a darkness lurked, a darkness that would eventually consume him, and leave a legacy of heartbreak and unanswered questions. His story is a chilling reminder that monsters often wear the most ordinary of masks. The quaint town of Allenstown, New Hampshire, was the kind of place where everyone knew their neighbors. It was a place where children could play freely, and doors were often left unlocked. It was in this idyllic setting that Terry Rasmussen, under the guise of Bob Evans, would weave his web of deception. It was 1981 when Denise Bowden, a young mother struggling to make ends meet, met the charismatic and helpful Bob Evans. He was a jack of all trades, working as an electrician at a local mill. He seemed like the answer to her prayers. Denise and Bob began dating, and soon, she and her infant daughter Dawn moved in with him. Life seemed to be looking up for the young mother. But then, like a ghost disappearing into the night, Denise and Dawn vanished. Their disappearance would remain a mystery for years, a cold case shrouded in uncertainty. Little did anyone suspect that the man they knew as Bob Evans held the key to unlocking the truth. He had simply packed his bags, taken on a new identity, and slipped away, leaving behind a trail of devastation. Years passed, and the case of Denise Bowden and her daughter grew cold. Then, in 1985, a chilling discovery shook the small town of Allenstown to its core. 2 metal drums were found in the woods of Bear Brook State Park, each containing the skeletal remains of a young woman and a child. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community and beyond. Who were these victims? How did they end up in those barrels, abandoned in the unforgiving embrace of the woods? The questions lingered unanswered for another 15 long years. Then, in 2000, another grim discovery was made. 2 more barrels hidden in the same patch of woods revealed the skeletal remains of 2 more young children. The mystery deepened, the whispers grew louder. Who was responsible for this unspeakable horror? The woods of Bear Brook State Park held their secrets close, the trees standing as silent witnesses to an unimaginable tragedy. But the truth, like a persistent whisper on the wind, would eventually find its way out. While the residents of Allenstown grappled with the horrors unearthed in Bear Brook State Park, Terry Rasmussen, the man who called himself Bob Evans, had long since moved on. He had shed his skin, assuming a new identity in a new state, California. He was now Larry Vanner, a seemingly ordinary man living an unremarkable life. He had reinvented himself once again, blending seamlessly into his surroundings. But the darkness that clung to him, the darkness that had claimed the lives of Denise and Dawn Bowden and the unidentified victims in the barrels, was not so easily left behind. In California, Rasmussen continued his pattern of deception and manipulation. He entered into a relationship with Yoon Jun, a Korean immigrant seeking a fresh start in America. He charmed her, just as he had charmed Denise Bowden years earlier. But his charm was a facade, a mask concealing the monster within. Rasmussen's true nature would soon be revealed, and Yoon Jun would become another victim ensnared in his web of lies. His past, however, was not yet ready to release him from its grip. The ghosts of his victims were not yet done with him. Section 5. The Sins of the Father. In 2002, Terry Rasmussen, living under the alias Larry Vanner, was arrested in California on charges of child endangerment and chemical assault. He had poisoned his girlfriend, Yoon Jun's kimchi stew, with a cocktail of dangerous chemicals. She died from the poisoning, but not before telling her friends who had done it. Rasmussen was sentenced to prison for his crimes. However, the true extent of his depravity was still unknown. He had successfully outrun his past for over 2 decades, but the walls were closing in. During his time in prison, authorities collected a DNA sample from Rasmussen as part of a routine procedure. This seemingly insignificant act would prove to be the key to unlocking a Pandora's box of horrifying secrets. The sins of the father were about to be laid bare. Section 6. Echoes of Unsolved Crimes. While Terry Rasmussen languished in a California prison, investigators in New Hampshire were making slow but steady progress on the Bear Brook State Park murders. The case had haunted the state for years, the victims' identities remaining a heartbreaking mystery. But forensic science was advancing, offering new hope for cracking cold cases. In 2017, investigators decided to try a new approach: genetic genealogy. They uploaded DNA profiles extracted from the Bear Brook victims to a public genealogy database, hoping to find distant relatives and narrow down their search. The results would prove to be both groundbreaking and devastating. The DNA from one of the young victims, a girl estimated to be between 2 and 4 years old, matched a distant cousin who had submitted their DNA to the database. This crucial link led investigators to a woman named Denise Bowden, who had vanished with her infant daughter Dawn in 1981. The missing persons case, long forgotten by many, suddenly took on a chilling new significance. Section 7. The DNA Detective. The DNA match between the young victim in Bear Brook State Park and Denise Bowden's family was a pivotal moment in the investigation. It provided a name, a face, and a tragic story to one of the unidentified victims. But more importantly, it pointed directly to Terry Rasmussen, the man who had once called himself Bob Evans. With renewed determination, investigators delved into Rasmussen's past, piecing together his movements, his aliases, and his crimes. They uncovered a pattern of deception, manipulation, and violence that spanned decades and crossed state lines. The DNA evidence, like a silent detective, had finally broken the case wide open. The man who had hidden in plain sight for so long, the chameleon who had blended into the background of everyday life, was about to be exposed for the monster he truly was. Section 8. Unmasking the Monster. In 2017, authorities announced that they had positively identified Terry Rasmussen as the man responsible for the murders of Denise Bowden and her daughter Dawn, as well as the unidentified victims found in Bear Brook State Park. They also linked him to the murder of Yoon Soon-jun in California. The news sent shockwaves through the nation. The man who had lived among them, the man who had assumed so many identities, was a serial killer. His ability to evade capture for so long, to reinvent himself time and time again, was both baffling and terrifying. Terry Rasmussen, the man who called himself Bob Evans, Curtis Kimball, Gordon Jensen, and Larry Vanner, was finally unmasked. The chameleon had been stripped of his disguises, his true nature revealed for all to see. But the story didn't end there. There were still unanswered questions, lingering doubts, and the chilling possibility that his reign of terror had claimed even more victims. Section 9. The Unanswered Questions. Terry Rasmussen died in prison in 2010, taking his secrets with him to the grave. However, his case continues to haunt investigators and the families of his victims. Many questions remain unanswered. Who were the other 2 children found in the barrels in Bear Brook State Park? Were there other victims, their stories yet to be told? The case of the Chameleon Killer is a stark reminder that monsters can hide in plain sight. It underscores the importance of vigilance, of questioning the facades people present to the world. And as we grapple with the unsettling truth of Terry Rasmussen's crimes, we are left to wonder, how many other chameleons are out there, blending into the background, waiting for their moment to strike? The thought is a chilling one, a reminder that the world can be a dangerous place even in the most seemingly ordinary of settings.